So I've got something really awesome today. First off, everything today came from the Facebook group. And if you've never been to the Bones to Bulk Facebook group, I highly recommend you head on over and check it out. But what I want to do today is I wanted to answer questions from the group members. And man, did I get some awesome questions. So we are covering the answers to every single one of those questions in today's episode. So strap in and get ready for episode 076. Let's go.
I've always been that skinny guy.
Why can't I gain muscle mass?
What do I do in the gym?
They said I'd always be skinny.
This is your complete source for how to gain lean muscle and break out of your skinny body. From nutrition to getting the most out of your workouts and everything in between. We know just how frustrating gaining muscle mass can be, but don't worry, we've got you covered. You're listening to the Bones to Bulk podcast. Hey, welcome to today's episode. My name is Brian Parody and episode 076. That's insane. I cannot believe we've been doing that this long, and I just want to thank you, the listener, for making that possible. So without further ado, I want to jump in to today's questions, which are all coming from the Facebook group. And if, again, I'm going to pitch it again. If you're on Facebook, head on over to the Bones to Bulk group because there's great people in there from all different walks, all different stages of the fitness journey. And yeah, there's just a lot of good people in there. So we're going to jump right in. Question number 1 comes from Michael, and he asks, how do you strengthen your latissimus dorsi after an injury and fix back pain? Well, those are kind of two different things. So back pain can stem from a lot of different things. If it's lower back pain, which is kind of the more typical, a lot of times it's often related to having a weak back and a weak core because those kind of run together. So as far as the back pain is concerned, I would recommend really focusing on building your core, coming from squats, coming from ab exercises, anything that's going to build a solid foundation there, deadlifts, and start off slow. Don't overdo it. If you're already experiencing pain, you don't want to exasperate it. So do very light weight till you get really comfortable and kind of test the waters on that. Then as far as the latissimus dorsi and strengthening that, underhand lat pulls are probably one of the best things that you can do to strengthen that muscle group. Moving on, Lacy asks, how do you choose the right supplements for your body? So there's a lot to this, and I'm going to try to keep it pretty simple. But basically, I don't believe in a ton of supplements. If you follow anything that I teach, I don't think that supplements are the end-all answer. With that being said, I definitely do think there are a few supplements that everyone, regardless of what your goals are, should be taking. The first off is protein. If you're doing whether you're running, whether you're lifting weights, whatever you're doing, you need to be intaking protein to build up and strengthen the muscles, first off. Second thing is I really recommend everyone take creatine HCl. Now, the purpose of creatine is something that naturally occurs in your body. It just naturally does. We create it. It's basically the energy. And so when we take creatine before a workout, what it does is it allows our cells to have more energy so that we can get in a better workout. That's all creatine is. A couple other things that I really recommend are fish oil and glucosamine because those are going to help lubricate the joints, keep you, just a little bit more limber in those areas. And that's really it. I also take personally a multivitamin. I never think that's a bad thing, but if you're getting everything you need from your nutrition, then there's probably not a need for that. But that in a nutshell is what I take. I literally think everyone should take the same supplements regardless of your goals. And yeah. All right, moving on. Anthony asks, what are the benefits of a full body versus a split body workout? So there's a lot of advantages, disadvantages to both, and neither one is wrong. It really comes down to what are your goals? Like, what are your goals for fitness? So for example, some benefits of full body is that you're hitting every muscle group every day, but you're not hitting it strong enough to where you're not going to be able to recover the next day by working it out again. Because usually you're only doing a couple exercises that hit each muscle group, and you're not really stressing those muscles enough. It's really good, I think, for just kind of overall strength and endurance to do a full body workout. However, if you're really trying to build more muscle mass,
then I think split body is the way to go, because you can work out the actual muscle groups much harder. And because by doing a split body, you're really honing in on certain muscle groups each day and really stretching them to the max. So it's going to help those muscles grow a little bit more. So just depending on again, neither one is bad. Honestly, I would switch it up. I personally usually do split body workouts, and then once a week I'll do a full body workout. So, break it up. 1 week do one week do the other. Again, just kind of depending on your goals. Troy asks, do baby steps help, or should you go all out? I believe in baby steps. Typically, if you go all out at first, you're going to burn yourself out, and that's going to lead to failure. So I believe in baby steps. I always say, especially when it comes to food, start off small. Start eliminating one thing that is unhealthy and replace it with something healthy. For instance, get rid of soda and replace it with water. After a couple weeks, when you've started to feel comfortable with that, then do the same thing with something else and just keep building and making those steps. Nick asks, what is the proper way to cut body fat percentage without losing muscle mass? This is the $1 million question. But no, for real, this is a hard thing. And first off, you have to understand, if you're going to cut body fat percentage, you are ultimately going to lose overall weight. The number on the scale is going to go down as you lose body fat percentage, because fat has mass to it. It has weight to it. And so as you lose that, you are going to lose overall weight. Will you sometimes lose a little bit of muscle? Yes, you probably will. So first off, don't let that scare you, because often when we get to a certain point, we think, oh, well, I just cannot lose any of my size. And I struggle with this myself, believe me. But what you really want to do is go into a very slight caloric deficit, very slight. So we're talking maybe 100 to 200, maybe 300 calories less than what you're burning per day. So you're just in a slight deficit. What that's going to do is it's going to very slowly start cutting off, and the first thing that's going to go are those fat areas. So that would be my suggestion for that. Austin asks, what are subtle exercises that I can do at my desk? Great question. There's so many studies out there that sitting all day is terrible for us, absolutely terrible. And so the first thing I would suggest is get up at least once an hour and walk around. Even if you go to the bathroom, to the water cooler, like whatever it is, get up and walk around once an hour. That is, first off, one thing you should be doing. Second thing, grab a resistance band. You can do a lot with it still sitting in your chair. You can step on the resistance band and you can do one-arm curls kind of under the desk. You can do stretches with it. You can do a lot with a resistance band. So I definitely suggest picking one of those up. You can do different things with your legs. Wrap it around your ankles and do side leg lifts. You can do front leg lifts. There's a lot of different things. Next thing, you can do seated tricep dips, where you kind of get off the seat, put your arms behind you, and lower your body down and come up. That one's going to be a little bit more noticeable. I know you want to do subtle ones. Also, just regular leg lifts. You can even buy the ankle weights and put them around your ankles, and then just under the desk, just do leg lifts throughout the day. Another thing is air squats. Just, again, stand up and just do a few air squats and sit back down. So hope that helps. Those are a few ideas for things you can do at your desk. Travis asks about exercises for shoulder impingement. Now, shoulder impingement typically happens due to, well, it can stem from several things. A lot of times it comes from improper lifting or overstressing the delts and the shoulder muscles. And what happens is that space between the rotator cuff and the deltoid becomes inflamed, and swells up. And so that movement area begins to be painful, or we have less mobility. And so some things to really help with that are strengthening your rotator cuff and also clean hangs. So for a hang, just grab onto a bar and just go dead weight and just hang there, and do that every day, a couple times a day for as long as you can, really, because you're not going to be able to hang too long. Also, strengthen those rotator cuffs. My favorite rotator cuff exercise is grab a dumbbell or use a resistance band, tuck your elbow into your side, and then just rotate the arm out without moving the elbow. I have videos on this on YouTube for that as well. All right, moving on. Nate asks, does cardio burn muscle? Well, that all depends. Basically, here's how it works. So every day we burn a certain amount of calories and we intake a certain calories with our food, right? So if you're building muscle and running and still eating in a caloric excess, then no, you're not going to burn off your muscle because your body has enough stores of carbohydrates or fat or whatever else you're consuming to run off of, or whatever your cardio source is, to where it's not going to take from your muscle. Now, what happens is if you're in a deficit of calories, then yes, it might take, because when you run, it's got to take energy from somewhere, right? And so if there's a deficit, then it's probably going to take cells from those muscles, which is going to cause you to burn your muscle. So it all really depends on what your eating is in kind of going along with your cardio and your muscle building. Justin asks, how do you eat healthy when you're a picky eater? That is a great question, and it is hard. If to begin with, if there's a lot of foods you don't like, then it can be tough to find things you enjoy, because ultimately, if you don't enjoy what you eat, then you're not going to stick to any plan. And so my biggest suggestion is try new things all the time. There's so many foods out there, and we're so limited. We grow up eating certain foods, and that's kind of what we just carry on throughout our life. Go to supermarkets and just look for things you've never had and try them. And once you find ones you like, go run with that. Like, make sure that's a staple and change up your spices, change up, how you prepare it so you don't get tired of it the same way all the time, but really get out there and explore new things. All right. Christopher asks, strength training versus max gaining, and what is the difference between the two and which is better? So again, neither one is better. It's really about what your goals are. If you're training for an Ironman or for a Spartan race, strength training is where you want to go. And basically, if I were to break down the difference, mass gaining is more about building the size of your muscles, building the aesthetic part. Not that strength training doesn't do that as well, but there's a little bit more focus on that, because what you're focusing on with mass gaining is you're really focusing on, we talked a little bit about it before, but more split body type workouts to where you're really stretching those muscles to the max so that you get the most stretch, the most workout, and so you're really going to start building up those muscles. Strength training differs in that it's a little bit more like a full body type workout, or your focus when you're lifting is not necessarily about going to absolute max. It's more about building that endurance, building just how strong overall you are by maybe jumping around from one exercise to another and doing different ones. And so my cat's trying to get on the podcast here. And so it's really important to do basically what your goal is. So if your goal is to compete in events or just be able to have overall more strength and endurance, then go after strength training and do more full body workouts, do more HIIT style. I'm not saying do HIIT, but that kind of style where you're resting less in between sets, where you're doing other accessory movements in between your sets of your heavy lifts. Whereas mass gaining, you're just really going hard and really hitting certain muscle groups each day. Kevin asks, what is the best way to cut weight and body fat percentage? So I kind of touched on this a little bit before. You've got to be in a deficit to cut anything, whether you're cutting overall weight or just body fat percentage. You have to be in a deficit. Now, if you're not really overweight and you're just trying to maybe tone a little bit more or lose some of that body fat percentage, you want to be in a very slight deficit. You don't want to be, consuming 500 less calories every day, because that's going to drop weight off you very quickly, which is probably not what you want to do. So what you want to do is do a slight deficit, 100 to 300 calories deficit a day, and really still lift heavy. And what that's going to do is it's going to slowly burn off. This doesn't happen overnight, especially once you get to that stage where there's just a little bit of change you want to make. This stuff takes time. So just slowly keep that deficit up and keep lifting heavy. Tommy asks, what is the point of carb loading. So typically carb loading is done by people who are competing in really long events like the Ironman or marathons or ultra marathons. And the theory behind it is in the days leading up to the event, you eat a crap ton of carbs. And so that your muscles and your liver can store glycogen, which your body uses as energy. So the more you have stored in your body in the days leading up, the more endurance and energy you're going to have for those events. So it has its place for those types of things, but on a day-to-day basis, no, I would definitely not recommend carb loading. And just for standard workouts and your standard lift days, no, you need a well-balanced carb, protein, healthy fats. So it has its place, but as the norm, I would not recommend it. All right, well, that is all the questions. Man, some good questions. And I know we ran over on our time just so that I could get them all answered. I really appreciate it. If you are, scratching your head, you have a question that I didn't address, again, hit me up on social media. I'm on IG, I'm on TikTok, I'm on Facebook. You can find me on any of those places. Email me. My email address is on the website, bonestobulk.com, and I would be more than happy to help you. Again, remember, regardless of where you're at, what you've been through, you can accomplish your fitness goals. You've got this.